G'day guys, and what I have behind me is a wicking bed, and it has been on my to-do list for quite a while now, and I finally got it done. So I thought I'd bring you guys along and show you how it went and showed you how I was being a tight ass with building this thing and how well it turned out. Now, if you guys don't know what a wicking bed is, I thought I might fill you guys in. Basically, in the simplest terms, at the bottom of this, there is a reservoir about yay deep that is just filled with water. And throughout the day, as the water evaporates, more just wicks up to the surface and is basically a self-watering system for the plants to grow in. Now, I love growing my aquaponic stuff. I've got tomatoes growing galore in the system, but one thing that it doesn't do is root crops. So I can't grow sweet potatoes, I can't grow carrots, I can't grow normal potatoes and those sort of things, and that's where this one comes in absolutely perfect. And what I have built inside of it is a no-dig garden bed, which I'll go into a little bit later.
Now, first step is the frame, and it doesn't really need to be that complicated. I know the steel guy, and I get quite a good deal off him for the steel that I buy, so I get it relatively cheap. The steel in this frame cost me about $30, and it's 40mm by 40mm box tube, which is quite cheap. And yes, I've got some horrible TIG welding skills, but I'm still learning and getting better as I go. Now, the depth and those sort of fun things that you get out of it. You want about 15mm for just a reservoir of water. So the layer that you got of the tube and the sand, which we'll get into a little bit later, and then about 30mm worth of thickness for it. So it's about 45mm high, but the rest of the measurements can be pretty much anything at all. Now, for the sides, I did a bit of hunting around to try and find something that was cheap, accessible, and would work quite well. And at the end, I found these panels that you use for the sides of houses. It's a concrete sort of blend, and it works quite well. And yes, I have a lot of Ryobi tools because they're cheap and they're easy and they're cordless and work quite well. And if you guys want to sponsor me, then go crazy, but I probably don't have enough subscribers at the moment to warrant it, but I'm all for it. And then it's just a matter of cutting more to size and putting them in there as it goes. Now, that bed there is currently on Gumtree at the moment. I just want to get rid of it. It's one of my old beds before I built one of the big ones at the end. And it's just a matter of putting this one into place. If you'd seen me move some of my old beds into place, then you see how much of a pain this is. But this one is really quite simple and quite easy. Now, the next job is the plastic. I bought this as a pond liner off eBay because it was relatively cheap. You can get it in the size that you want, and it's a hell of a lot stronger. You can use something like builder's plastic, but at the end of the day, you'll get things like roots that will break through it and other things like that, and you'll end up with water disappearing down the bottom and not knowing why, and not being able to check it unless you pull the other thing up. So it's just a matter of struggling with it, getting it all into place, screwing it all in place, and that sort of fun stuff. Now, what I have here is ag pipe that's being wrapped inside of a material. And that material basically stops all the solids, the bits of manure, the bits of hay, the sand and everything getting into it. And the stuff stretches out amazingly. Now, that whole tube there cost me about $30, which I think was pretty good. And then the next step is to cover the whole thing with. Now, the sand is the first material that starts in a wicking, and it's surrounded by water. So the water stays inside of all the tubes that's in there and imbues in all the sand that's down there and then wicks up through the thing. And what I've got there is my bottom drain. So it's the overflow pipe for the water. So if the water gets too high, then it overflows outside of that drain instead of filling up the entire bed with water. And it works quite well. There are a couple different ways of doing it, but I found leftover pipe that I had lying around, I jabbed a hole through it, and it doesn't need to be particularly watertight at the bottom. Now, this is where the no-dig garden fun begins. Basically what it is layers of compost and manure and hay and things like that that break down into a really, really fantastic soil. Now, it can be a bit expensive trying to find it, so I usually scour places like Gumtree, and there's that many horse places around that are just really happy for you to come and take it away from them, because they are overflowing with horse manure and those sort of things, and it's free.
How you doing?
Now, there are a couple of different reasons why we layer up inside of the garden bed. If we just put something like solid manure in there, then you'd find out in a couple months you'd come out and it would be a massive soggy mess. The manure would create anaerobic zones and it just wouldn't allow any air or anything to get to it because there isn't enough carbon inside of the soil. So that's pretty much what the hay does. Now, it doesn't have to be hay. You could use something like pea straw, you could use newspaper that's been ground up into small little pieces. But I find the hay works really well because you can go to a fodder store and just buy it really cheaply and really easily. And then I can harass my chickens and take out all the chicken scraps and the chicken manure, and that goes into it as well. So I like to use a blend of manures inside the garden bed for a couple of very good reasons. If I just use something just like chicken manure, then that is very high nitrogen and you'd end up with problems with too high nitrogen inside of the soil. So I like to do a blend of horse, cow and whatever the hell I can find. Now next thing, I've got a bit of blood and bone which just helps neutralise any problems inside of it and add a few trace minerals and everything to it. And then it's more of a layer of cow manure. Now I like to use the already composted stuff that you can buy from the shops because it allows me to plant into it straight away while the other layers rot down a bit and become really rich and just add to everything. And one important thing to note is to water everything in very, very well. Because if you don't water it down enough, then it becomes very water repellent and you end up with problems just getting enough water into it. And this just completely makes sure it's not a problem at all. And here is the final thing, minus the paint. But I need to get water into it, which is the next job. Now, around the back of my backyard, I have already existing watering system which waters my fruit trees, the passion fruit vines, and those sort of things. And I'm just going to hook into that completely. You can see a bit of the water already overflowing, which means that it works, and it'll water quite frequently whenever the fruit trees get watered naturally.
So, thanks guys for watching, and I hope you guys got something out of this. If you've got any questions, then shoot me down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer. So, thanks guys, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe.